like I had experienced in high school. By the time I graduated 5 years later, I'd only had one Black professor. The only professor I talked to for more than 5 minutes the whole time I attended the school. At the University of Florida, you had to put your nose to the grindstone, work twice as hard as your classmates, and prove that you belonged there. After all, if someone received a job because they were a minority, was it fair that the opportunity was given to them because of the color of their skin? The question was often posed by one of my journalism classmates during class discussions about the merits of these types of affirmative action initiatives. This was the early 90s, on the heels of the Rodney King verdict. Top journalism schools around the country were making a huge effort to increase Black representation in newsrooms nationally. This meant recruiting efforts at predominantly Black high schools like mine. Full scholarships, internships, and mentorships were offered to students from historically excluded backgrounds. On several occasions, I remember heated discussions about the fairness of affirmative action and white students in my classes feeling as though it was unfair. My response was always that affirmative action was attempting to address hundreds of years of policy and practice that had always been unfair. From my own experience as an intern, newsrooms still had very few folks that looked like me. My explanations were typically met with blank stares from my classmates, followed by awkward silences and quick pivots to another topic from professors who also looked nothing like me. I learned that loud, boisterous voice I had cultivated so well didn't contribute to my survival in spaces where people didn't look like me. Their curious glances betrayed that they were already wondering how I'd managed to be sitting next to them, questioning whether I truly belonged. Constantly making jokes, as I had in high school, was unseemly considering the gravity of being allowed in these spaces. I was the only one who looked like me. I had to represent in a way that showed I took this privilege seriously. There was no room for mistakes, because I felt all eyes on me every time I walked into a room. The most transformative moment of my life was feeling the heavy steel of handcuffs clamped on my wrists. I was placed in the back of a police car when I was just 19 years old, as a sophomore at the University of Florida. I was falsely accused of shoplifting and arrested. The charges were later dropped, and I won a civil lawsuit against the retail store that had called the police. But in that moment, everything I thought about the world and my place in it changed. For the first time in my life, I felt totally powerless, staring down at my hands and realizing I had no ability to control anything. For many Black women in corporate America, there is a similar feeling of helplessness and even hopelessness. Perhaps we have other trauma we have had to navigate and even suppress just so we can function in predominantly white spaces. We know we are expected to always be perfect, have the answers, and look like we have it all together. Meanwhile, we're slowly falling apart inside. We feel powerless because we know we can't share any of these feelings for fear of being seen as incompetent. We don't have the ability to empower our voices, so we turn inward, working harder than everyone else. We secretly hope that our work ethic will be rewarded, yet we are always overlooked and undervalued. Silence became my strategy as I completed my degree and entered the workplace. First in nonprofit organizations, then in media and sales roles, until eventually climbing the ranks of the administrative offices in higher education. I spent more and more time listening rather than speaking. I also learned to moderate my voice in a way that appeared to be appealing in those spaces. I wanted to be accepted, so I tried to present myself in a way that showed I wasn't a threat to the status quo in these environments. I always smiled. I rarely showed my outgoing personality. I was one note because one note was safe. That feeling of safety cultivated by my actions was violated again about a week after May 25th, 2020. Everything changed when I inadvertently watched the video of George Floyd being murdered by former police officer Derek Chauvin. I had managed to avoid the video on social media, quickly scrolling whenever I saw the coverage in my feed. But on this day, I was checking my work email on my laptop while I sat on the couch.